as it would get later, I noticed that the feeling in that room would change, and it didn't feel as good. It didn't feel like I should be there. And I felt like I was being told to leave. My husband was in the theater by himself practicing singing, and he saw girls sitting in the seats watching him. And then he's heard her singing multiple times.
Welcome to It's Worth Mentioning, a podcast about local history. I am your host, Rett Nelson, and my guest today is Ronnie Kerbs. She and her husband owned the Bacon and Bleu family restaurant in Idaho Falls, but years ago, Ronnie owned what used to be the Old Virginia Theater on Main Street in Shelley. Today, it's a haunted attraction called Lost Souls, owned by her brother, Andrew, and his wife. But Ronnie is going to tell us about the history of this building. It's an iconic building for people who live here locally. There are also stories of spirits haunting the building, which is timely, being that Halloween is coming up this week. So if you're a fan of supernatural things and old historic buildings, this is an episode you don't want to miss. We'll get into that in just a second. Before we get into any of that, I would like to remind those of you watching to follow our show on the East Idaho News YouTube channel, and then be watching for us soon in audio format wherever you get your podcasts. Ronnie Kerbs joins us today from her restaurant in Idaho Falls via Zoom. Ronnie, thanks so much for taking some time to talk with me today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Like we mentioned, you are the former owner of the Virginia Theater. You and your husband, I talked with you about 5 years ago when you opened Bacon and Bleu Family Restaurant. Before we get into the history of Virginia Theater and all of that, update us on the restaurant. How are things going there?
Oh, things are going really well. I think initially when we opened, we were just kind of slammed with business and we weren't really equipped to handle it. We had a very small staff, and now we are fully equipped with staff and much quicker getting food out. So it's going really well. Our business is building every year. So I know a lot of restaurants close after 5 years, and we're just hitting our 5-year mark and going strong. So we're pretty proud of it. It's going well.
5 years seems to be the magic number for
it is.
If you can make it to the 5-year mark, you're probably going to last. So
yeah, you're either worn out and you want to stop, or
yeah.
Anyway, it's going well. So
well, I'm excited to dive into this discussion with you today. A little bit of supernatural elements and some cool history. The Virginia Theater. Let's start with that. It's an old building dating back to the year 1912. Is that correct?
Yeah, as far as I know, it was probably rebuilt about 1912.
And it was your second great-grandfather, John Shelley, who played a role in that building getting constructed.
I believe he backed the building of it, and then his son and his son-in-law are the ones that built that and ran that. So
and I think it's important to note for locals, for people who live in the area, John Shelley is the father of the city of Shelley. That's who Shelley is named after, right?
Yeah. Yep. He's the founder of Shelley, and he came in Shelley about 1898 maybe, or 1880 something, and then they established it officially in don't quote me on this, but maybe 1903 or 1902, somewhere around there. Let me see if I wrote it.
Going back
1904, sorry.
Oh, okay.
1904 it was established.
Yeah, gotcha. So going back to, the early 1900s, why did John Shelley want to build this building? What was his motivation there?
That's interesting. I'm not sure, except for I do know that he loved theater. I do believe he helped build a theater in Utah as well. So he was originally, I don't know if he's originally from Utah, but he was there for quite a while and built a theater there that, unfortunately, that one burnt down as well. So that was previously. So I'm not sure, except for that just the love for poems and theater, and probably wanted to kind of boost the city, I'm assuming, give it some life, I'm guessing. So
So locals who have grown up in Shelley, they remember the Virginia Theater, a lot of them as a movie theater,
Mhm.
which it was for many years. But when it was first built in 1912, what was the original
Mm.
function of the building?
Well, I don't know. I think I know my grandmother said it was an opera theater. She said that. But I do think they had pretty early on, were going for the movies. So I'm not sure exactly when they started doing movies, but I think it did do silent films and moved um, into our what we know now. But so it may have began like that, honestly, and then they used it for other things as well. They even had some church functions in that building, and I know that there's even a hymn that was written from someone that came to that building and had a meeting there. So I think they used it for many things, but I do think silent films was happening pretty early on. So I do think he had a passion for movies as well, for the upcoming technology that was happening. So,
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
mhm.
motion pictures were a new medium at
Yeah,
the time.
I mean,
Uh,
and there's a pretty good projector room, and I think that was, pretty original to the building in 1912. So I would say that was kind of their goal, is heading that direction. So,
this is a little fact. I don't expect you to know this, but it
mhm.
would be interesting to note, what the first movie was that they showed
Oh,
there.
wow.
You have any
That
idea?
would be, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Um, there, there used to be a whole bunch of old posters on the wall, like when you would go up the stairs to the projector room, there was old movie posters all over the wall. But most of them were, 60s, 70s. But yeah, nothing, I don't think they had much of. Yeah, I'm not sure there's a record of what was showing there. That would be cool, though. That would be
It
cool to find out.
would be
Yeah.
cool. You're mentioning the projector room, and that's going to be a focus of our discussion today
Mhm.
because of the interesting history with spirits haunting the building, and so
Right.
we'll come back to that room being referenced here.
Well,
But before we get into some of these little supernatural elements, just a fun historical connection. John Shelley's daughter married a man by the name of Frank Healy Albertson, who was a movie actor,
right.
he played a small part in several Hollywood films.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I just found that out actually, searching it up. So that's pretty interesting. Yeah, he played a small part in Psycho and some old westerns, and he did quite a bit, which was kind of a Miracle on 34th Street. Is that what the right title
Or
there?
is it It's a Wonderful
Miracle.
Life?
Oh, yes, sorry. Yes, It's a Wonderful Life. Yep. I just looked at that this morning, so I'm like, oh, I don't know. But
Yeah.
yes, I think. And she pretty much moved to California and lived there the rest of her life along with him. But yeah, that was John Shelley's daughter, um, Virginia Shelley. So I was basically just trying to find out who. I always knew it was his granddaughter the theater was named after, but I couldn't find any Virginia in their family history. So I did a little deeper searching, and I found that that's who it was, who the theater was named after. She was only 2 when they built that theater, so that's pretty interesting. But
Yeah, that is interesting, and
it is.
it's an interesting connection because her father owned a movie theater, and then
Mm-hmm.
she went and married a movie
Yeah.
actor. So how did Virginia and Frank meet? Do you have any idea?
Well, I'm not sure, actually. I am not sure. I know they did do some traveling. I know at one point John Shelley took his family to go to a fair in another state. So I think they probably did some vacationing. I'm not exactly sure how they met, perhaps at school. Um, I'm not sure.
So Frank Albertson was a local then.
I'm not sure about that either.
Yeah, yeah, okay. But these two parts that he had in these movies, It's a Wonderful Life and Psycho, do you
Mhm.
have any idea who he played in those movies?
I read just today because this is when I found this information out. But he was a man that said "hee haw" in Psycho. So I would have to go back and watch it. Honestly, it's been a
Okay.
lot of years since I've seen the show. But yeah, he played a lot of different roles. You can look him up, and it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. It's interesting that he was in Psycho. As we record this, we're a few days before Halloween, and
Right.
that's a popular movie to watch at this time of year.
Yes.
Yeah, getting back here to the Virginia Theater, um, built in 1912 and then functioned as a movie theater for many
Yes,
years.
and I believe it was one of the oldest theaters in Idaho. So it's the oldest running theater in Idaho for sure. But there was a theater built in Nampa just a couple years before that, but that burned down. So the Virginia is the oldest running theater in Idaho. So John Shelley originally backed it, and his son and son-in-law, they ran it. And then I believe he sold it to his son, Ralph Shelley, I think is his name, or no, Ralph Davis. So it was his son-in-law. So Davis actually ran it for a long time, probably late 60s, because I believe he passed away in a car accident. I think that's when Darwin Vest actually started running the theater. I'm not sure how long he ran the theater, but he was a toxicologist in Idaho Falls, and he had an obsession with spiders and snakes, and I know that he actually even kept some of those at the theater as he study different things. And it's kind of cool because he was actually the one that invented the hobo spider trap and supposedly named the spider, but I'm not sure if that's true. That's just something I read, but
I have heard that.
uh-huh.
I also heard that Vest was often called upon by the court system to testify
Yes.
in any cases
Yes.
that related to spiders or snakes
Right.
because of
So
his
he
wealth
might
of
have,
knowledge.
right, and he might have made a few people unhappy.
Oh,
So,
really?
well, perhaps. I know that before he disappeared, probably, oh, I'm sorry, but maybe 3 to 6 years, maybe 3 years before he disappeared, he was beaten. I know there was a fight and he was beaten, and that person went to jail. And he was released, and Darwin was upset that he wasn't notified that this man was released. And I think it was within that year, or even within a month or two, he disappeared. So,
Interesting. So yeah,
yes.
for people who don't know, in June of 1999, he was
Hmm.
walking home from the Frosty Gator and he
Yes.
was never seen again. And
Right.
to this day, police, detectives, investigators, they can't they don't have any evidence or can't conclusively say what happened to him. And
Right.
after years and years of searching for him in 2004, I believe he was declared legally dead just because
Right.
there was no information that
Right.
could lead to an explanation. So that's why Darwin Vest is so noteworthy. But this little thread that you've brought up is kind of interesting. So before his disappearance, he was beat up.
Yes, about 3 years, I think, before, and he was beat up, and then that man was went to jail for the 3 years, and then was released. And I just know he was upset that he wasn't notified. So I've always felt like it was a suspicious disappearance. I know some of his family has told me that they felt that he was maybe still alive in another state, and I just don't think that's the case. And then others believe that he was dead, that he was murdered, and maybe a few believed that he really did fall into the river. He had been drinking, and he was kind of a lightweight, supposedly, and someone had claimed that they heard a splash, but I don't know if that was. But they never found his body, so it seems a little suspicious to me. So they
Hmm.
even dug up the yard of the person that was of interest. They actually dug up his yard to see if he was buried there.
Yeah.
So, but
By
I
the
think they
way,
had a couple of suspects. Yeah.
so for people watching the podcast today, we aren't going to dwell a whole lot on the Darwin Vest case, but there are numerous podcasts and reports out there. If you want to dive more into this case, it's quite interesting. There's a number of podcasts that have delved deep into the hours and minutes leading up to his disappearance, where he was, conversations he had with people, and so forth. And it's kind of, if you're interested in that case, there's lots of information out there that you can look up, and we may be doing a future episode about that on It's Worth Mentioning here in the future. But staying on Darwin Vest here for just a minute, Ronnie,
Yes.
this man who beat Darwin up, you said that Darwin's knowledge of spiders and snakes upset a few people. So what was this man's motive for beating up Darwin? What was the
Well,
reason?
I think he's the one that sent him to prison, or maybe he testified against one of his friends. I know he wasn't hanging around with the best crowd. I'm not sure exactly the motive, but I do know that even though I think Darwin was a pretty likable guy, he was intelligent and he had a lot of knowledge on things. His views on things weren't what weren't the normal for around here. So he was maybe a lot of people maybe didn't care for him a whole lot as well. So it's hard to say exactly why, but I think there was something personal there, and that happened. And then I'm not sure if it was just that case, just the beating that put him away, or what it was. But
So the Virginia Theater, there have been reports of, spirits haunting this building over the years, and
right.
we're gonna delve a little deeper into that. But since we're on the topic of Darwin Vest right now, I was talking to Ronnie, your sister-in-law Camilla, who currently owns
Mhm.
the venue with her husband Andrew. It's
Mhm.
the building is now a haunted attraction,
Right.
which is ironic given the history of
Yeah.
hauntings. But she was telling me that she has known work employees who have worked in the basement of that building or something and have claimed to have seen a man in a flannel shirt.
Mhm.
Darwin was wearing a flannel shirt the night of his disappearance, and they believe that this spirit was the spirit of Darwin. I don't
Right.
know if you've had experiences or people tell you that they've seen Darwin in that building. Is that something that you've
Oh,
ever come across?
yeah, I've definitely had people tell me that they believe they've seen Darwin. Whether or not it is Darwin or not, I'm not sure. I've seen shadows or figures or heard walking or sometimes voices, um, doors opening or different things like that. And but I definitely would say I feel something is there. I just haven't seen it so visually that I could say, oh, he was wearing a flannel shirt or this and that. But definitely in that basement, that old coal furnace is a really creepy room. And if you go through the haunted theater, you'll get to actually go through that room. It's a small room, and they did have the coal furnace in there, and that was ran clear until the 90s. It was a coal furnace. So I remember shoveling coal into that, trying to keep the heat going for live shows in the 90s. So anyway, now it's been updated, so you don't have the coal furnace anymore. But he would keep his snakes and spiders and things down in that cold, musty basement, or up in the projector room. That's kind of where he liked to hang out. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if he was roaming the theater.
Now we're getting into the stories of these hauntings, these ghost
Yeah.
stories, if you will, at the Old Virginia Theater. Earlier in
Hmm.
our conversation, you brought up the projector room in the theater.
Yes.
And
Uh-huh.
before we started recording today, you were telling me that that room has always been particularly freaky to you
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
you just sense a presence or there's kind of a dark feeling in there. In your
Right.
time managing the theater,
Hmm.
there that room was particularly creepy to you, but also you didn't like to be there late at night by yourself
Right.
because there was a
Hmm.
sense that something or
Yeah.
someone was there. So tell me about some of these experiences you've encountered with spirits or whatever you want to call
Right.
it.
Right. Sure. Well, I most of the time I think the theater has a pretty good feeling to it, and it's not too freaky to me. I've spent a lot of hours there, and I would go in and clean by myself if I just wanted a place to think and have quiet. I would go there. Um, I was once adapting the script for Anne of Green Gables. We were getting ready to do that show, and I needed to finish it up, and I was getting a lot of interruptions from my kids. So I decided to go to the theater I locked myself in and I went up to the light booth and I was just typing on my computer and working on the script. And I did hear a noise downstairs and I thought maybe my brother had come in because he does have a key. He would rent and do the haunted theater. He started the second year that I was running live shows. So he was doing haunted theater for a long time. I went downstairs, checked out, nobody was down there. I called it out to him, nobody was there. I went back up and I was typing, and after a little bit, I smelled perfume, really strong, flowery perfume, and I'm a little sensitive to scents, especially like flower scents. So I almost could feel it like burning my face. It was that strong. Um, but I just thought, well, that's odd. I smelled my hands because I thought maybe I didn't wash the soap off my hands when I used the restroom or touch something, my bag of food or whatever that I had. Maybe I touched that bag and it had somebody's perfume on it. So I'm sniffing everything and I couldn't smell that smell anywhere. And so I'm like, well, I just kept working. I'm like, I have to get work done. And I was working and I could just sense, I didn't see anybody, but I could sense a woman that was there looking over my shoulder, leaning over, looking at what I was doing. And I even got the feeling that she was pleased with what I was doing. But that was very interesting. And I was okay. I didn't feel like a bad spirit, didn't necessarily feel like really good either. But I just kept working. And then I eventually, after a couple hours, I just felt a little uneasy. And I decided I should probably go. So that's one experience I had. I had mentioned that to my husband, and because I had recalled him telling me he had smelled perfume smells and I thought he was just talking about like the prop room or the costume room, and of course you're going to get somebody's perfume off of the costumes. I've smelt that before as well. But no, he said no, definitely I've smelt that also in the projector room, and he'd say probably half a dozen times he had smelt that perfume smell. So it just kind of, oh, I believe you. So I kind of realized, oh, I got it too. I understand. So some people have said that they've seen a woman sitting in the seats that had kind of reddish hair pulled in a bun, and I would say, and I've asked like where in the seats, and they would kind of say where, and I've had some feelings over in those seats as well. So there's been a few times where I had a production and it was pretty full, so I had to sit more in the back, like the spot that's not taken the most, and it's kind of the back right side. And I would be sitting there and just kind of, even though there was a few empty seats by me or a couple rows even, I felt like uneasy a little bit, like I needed to leave, like I was in someone else's space. So I've had to move because I'm like, this person doesn't want me here. They want, this is their spot where they like to watch the shows. So so
You were you
that's been interesting.
Was it
What's that?
you? It was either you or Camilla that was telling me she was talking to an older gentleman in the community and saying that
Mm-hmm.
he actually sat in that seat, and during the
Mm.
movie he felt someone kick his chair,
Oh wow.
and he
I
turned
I
and
don't recall.
he turned back and asked, "Did you guys kick my chair?" And these people
Mm.
were like, "No, we told you before, don't sit there. That's where the ghost sits."
Yeah,
And
I
and
think
he
right. I agree. I think that's probably happened a lot. In fact, maybe that's why the seats are usually empty back there because it's not a comfortable place to sit. It doesn't feel quite right. So, and um, but yeah, unless we were like full, but I feel like I've had a few times also where I've been in the projector room. You talked about the projector room,
uh-huh.
and I was hanging costumes up and I needed to get work done. And it wasn't a terrible feeling in there, but I just thought, I just need to get this work done. And it was when I was kind of starting out and I just didn't have as many costumes. So I just used that room to hang all the costumes. And as it would get later, I noticed that the feeling in that room would change and it didn't feel as good. It didn't feel like I should be there, and I felt like I was being told to leave. And so when I get like 11 or 12 o'clock at night and I'm trying to push past and get my work done, I'm like, no, it's time to go. And I would get out there pretty quickly. I try not to draw too much attention or act scared because I feel like if you just pretty much mind your own business and do your thing, they're going to go about their thing. But if you draw attention or you're like, oh, there's a spirit in here, it's scary, and then it kind of increases. So I feel it, I don't know if it gives them power or they just feel more motivated to do more. So for me, I don't have as many stories as I think I probably should, just because a lot of times I was just in there ignoring them. If I could feel a spirit there, then I would just usually ignore it and go about my business. Have
Yeah.
work to do.
You
So,
you have told me the sense of, something being in the building
mhm.
eventually led to ghost hunters coming there.
Oh, yes. I always had people contacting me wanting to do stay the night there or do a ghost hunting thing. And I was always, no, 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 I don't want to mess with that. Don't want to bring more to the theater, more than
Y-
we already have.
Right.
So, but my cousin Desi, she she set something up and I said, yeah, that's fine. I'm not going to be involved, but you go ahead. Here's the keys and go ahead and do it. And these ghost hunters came and I believe it was an episode on something, but I don't recall what it was, what ghost hunters. There was someone in Utah, somewhere in Utah. And I couldn't find the episode. So they came in with their equipment and everything and their psychics and at the time I was working next door and at the end of my work I kind of got drawn into come check it out. They were done with most of what they were doing, but they're like, you need to come in and try this. We want to see how they react with you because you have a history with this theater. And so I said, all right, I'll go for a little while. And so I go into the theater and they put these earbuds or headphones on me where it translates the frequency. I don't know how it works, but it comes through always as a man's voice, even if it's a woman speaking, but it basically picks up the words that are being said from the spirits. And so multiple words were coming in and they said, just listen for the sentences because you'll just get a whole bunch of, it takes a lot of energy to speak, to have it come through. So it will repeat itself over and over. And so I just listened for the sentences, but it was pretty active in that main lobby. There was a lot of voices going. So we went into the main theater and sat down for a while and just were talking and asking questions. Um, some people have claimed that they've seen a little girl in the theater. My husband was in the theater by himself practicing singing, and he saw girls sitting in the seats watching him. And a girl about 8, 9, 10 years old, 10 years old, and then he's heard her singing multiple times in the theater. Um, so they were asking things like we were asking questions such as like, did a little girl die in that time? And the answer was yes, that there was a girl that had died at that time in 1900. And I was trying to get information about that. I kind of was curious because I tried to find some news articles on someone that might have died because I had sensed a girl as well, and even a little boy, and a woman and a man. So, and this may sound crazy, but I've even seen them in my dream. And in my dream, they were on the stage and they were in their old clothes. And at one point, I felt like one man was smoking a cigar. I don't know. I think that might have been a different character, but they would just not even notice me. They were just passing by, not noticing me. But I always sensed they were scared of someone there, scared of the man that was there. Um, but they wouldn't. They were just going about their business, like just their daily lives, and I was watching them. So that's very interesting. But back to the little girl, we were asking questions. I was trying to get a little information because I've had these dreams, probably from pretty young, of being in the building while it's being renovated. So I would have these dreams that were scary where I would be on a ladder or on this plank and I was scared of falling. So I had a lot of dreams like that was me in the building before I even owned the theater, before I even did anything with the theater. So it's very interesting. So I wondered if something had happened during construction, but it doesn't appear that that was so. So I was trying to get some information from the spirit going, did someone die from falling off a ladder or falling off something? Because I have these memories of things that are or dreams that are very vivid and always the same. And someone died, but we weren't sure how they passed away.
Interesting.
So we were asking the questions, and they sensed that maybe the spirit was getting a little too attached to us. Did you want me to go on to that a little bit more about who it
Yes.
might have been?
Yes.
Okay. So I just yesterday I did a little more searching for my great great grandpa and his children, and I found that he did have a daughter that passed away at age 9, and it doesn't give any information of how or why or there's nothing because his older daughter was at college and she got a phone call that her sister had passed away. And she came home and that's this whole letter that she wrote about it. And and everybody was just devastated about it. But she liked to sing. So this 9-year-old girl, she said she was very much in her own little world, and she was a joy. Everybody loved her. And she said she just remembers always walking around singing. So I thought that was interesting that my husband's heard singing in the theater and he's seen a 9-year-old girl. So,
Yeah.
and they also
Wow.
had a little brother that died at 6.5. So there was a boy and a girl of John Shelley's children that passed away at young ages. They also had a 1-month-old baby that passed away. So, but the 6.5-year-old and the 9-year-old, that's what I've seen in my dreams. So I thought that was very interesting. I'm not sure where I'm picking that up, but like I
Yes.
said, I don't see the spirits usually. I might see a shadow, but I can usually feel if something's there.
Hmm.
So so we were asking questions. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes. Um, well, you're not alone in
Hmm.
having these kinds of experiences. You know, a lot of people are hesitant to share these kinds of things because they think people are going
Right.
to think I'm nuts.
I'm
But
not aware.
numerous people have shared things like this. Camilla, your sister-in-law,
Hmm.
who, by the way, I keep referencing her. She didn't want to be on camera for this interview, but
Right.
she told me lots of stories, and she recounted similar experiences. I mean,
Right.
your experiences are mostly related to feeling something.
Yes.
She
Hmm.
shared stories of people claiming they've seen something,
Yes.
and your husband saw a little
My
girl.
husband's seen multiple people. Yeah. He
So,
believes he's seen Darwin Vest as well. So
and you guys have even brought in, you've had the building blessed to see if that
hmm
would purge the building of, you know, these
yeah.
these these presences, if you will.
Yeah, I might say, when I was running the plays, I always had a good feeling in there. I never had a struggle with a spirit except for unless I was in the theater late at night, then it would change. Or if you were in the projector room or the basement, which I just hardly ever went down to the basement. Um, but generally, it had an overall just good feeling about it. So when my brother would come in and bring the haunted theater, sometimes that spirit would change. Usually they wouldn't have any incidents through a run, but every now and then there might be something, and they were like, there's something not good in here, and they would also have to cast that spirit out. Um, but generally, by the time they took everything down and I started my run, that feeling was gone, and it was a good feeling in there. So I think, and I feel almost like the spirits that are there, it's sad. I hope a child's not trapped, and hopefully they're just coming to visit because they have fond memories, right?
Yes.
Hopefully someone's not trapped there, but I've only known the little kids to be there when something positive is going on, a musical or something fun going on, and same probably with the woman. But the man is he doesn't enjoy people. You can get that, and he doesn't want his space bothered. So I think he's more of a dark figure, and I'm not sure exactly who that is, if it is Darwin or if it's somebody else.
Yes.
But as we were speaking through the earphones, through the headphones, as the spirit, they just wanted to they're very careful not to get too connected to the spirit. They're like, we don't want it to follow you or bother you. And he obviously is very or she, I don't know if it was he or she, very connected to you. And so they wanted to kind of take me from that room. So as we were leaving the room, and they said, well, we talked to a spirit yesterday and up in the projector room, and he didn't want to talk with us, but maybe he'll be wanting to talk with us now. So they went to leave, and the spirit in my headphones said, demon spirit. And I don't know, I mean, okay, that's a big deal. So I don't know if it meant if he or she was trying to say it's like a demon spirit, not a good spirit, or if it truly is like a demon up there. But I
Mhm.
thought, oh, that kind of startled me. That was the first time I really felt freaked out. And then I just heard sorry, 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 sorry over and over because of the energy as they come through. Like I said, we'll just repeat the word over and over. So we did end up starting to go up to the costume room that connects to the projector room. And it was kind of a back way. There's two different stairs that will go up to that. So we're kind of going through the lobby, through our it used to be a pizza place. It was my makeup room where we'd get ready for the shows, one of the spots we'd get ready for the shows. And then you go upstairs and begin to the newer costume room, which was no longer at this time in the projector room. It had been grown and moved to this other room and that connected to the projector room. So we went up to this room, and a couple of the psychics or people that were sensitive to spirits actually had a hard time breathing. One felt like they were going to throw up. They said, we're not going up there, and they had to go outside and get air. And so we decided we were just going to go up for a little bit, and we did. And I had the headphones on still, and something spoke to me, and it was very strange because I felt like I should have known what was being said. But it almost seemed like it was in a foreign language, and yet I kind of felt like it wasn't. So I don't know if I was just kind of getting protection and it was getting scrambled that I couldn't know what it was saying to me. But I knew it wasn't
Mhm.
good, and he didn't have good intentions for me. So we pretty much had to leave, and they said, no, this one does not want to talk to us. They're not. It's not a good, pleasant person. This particular group, has kind of the motivation to help people, to help spirits that maybe are having trouble passing on, moving on, and kind of hanging on to worldly things or hanging on to maybe their things that they've done or things that they're kind of dragging them down. So their motivation was kind of just to talk to these spirits and help them move on. So I don't know about but that was kind of more of their motivation, not to just kind of stir things up or cause more spirits to come to a place, but more of just let's help these people know that they can change, they can move, they don't have to be stuck here. So that's kind of their motivation. And they
Yeah.
tried to speak to him again, but everybody felt like, nope, we needed to go right now. So everybody felt really strongly that we had to leave. So we did. So after that, I had
Here,
trouble being in the theater. So
you definitely understand why you were freaked out.
yeah.
Um, Ronnie, in the last few minutes that we have left, tell me about the time you said a spirit followed you home. Because you were saying
Yeah.
that these ghost hunters tried not to get too close so that they wouldn't follow you
Right.
home, but you had
Yes.
one follow you home.
Yes, and they asked us to just tell the spirit to stay there. And I thought, well, I don't want him to stay here. This is my workplace. I don't want him to stay in the theater. I want him to leave. And they
Yeah.
said, well, we'll bless the building. We'll cast it out or whatever they need to do. They said, just tell him to stay there. And I felt kind of silly because I still had a bit of skepticism in my mind, I guess. I'm like, these spirits are talking to me through these headphones. I'm like, eh. Um, so I still had that in my mind, and I kind of just half-heartedly said, "Yeah, you stay here." I went home. I felt okay. I felt fine. I felt a little like something was there, but it wasn't really a bad feeling, so I didn't worry about it. Maybe it felt familiar because I'm around them a lot. I don't know. But that night, I did not sleep very well, and I kept waking up, and I don't know if I saw it, if I just knew it was there. Just a dark figure standing at my bed, and I knew right where he was, how tall he was. And it made me a little uneasy. I was pretty tired, so I just went back to sleep. And that happened a few times where I just felt like someone was standing there watching me, which was a little eerie.
Mm.
Then as I got up and I started getting ready for the day and I was showering and got out of the shower, I sensed him there again. And that's why I was like, oh no, you're not going to be here, So I told him to leave. And then I called my brother and he came and like blessed my house and it felt better after that. And it wasn't necessarily the strange thing. It didn't feel like a really terrible, dark really dark spirit, but it was more of a neutral. So I guess more negative, but not so negative that like I felt like my life was in danger, if that makes sense. It didn't feel
Mm-hmm.
like it just felt uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, I was getting ready to open a show in a couple of weeks, and I had to have practices every night, and I was fine with that. But I had the hardest time going in early to get things done, and or staying late. And I do so much on my own, so sets and costumes, and so it was hard to get ready for that show because it felt strange to be there. Like I could feel the spirits a little stronger. And I don't know if it's because I acknowledged them and then they knew that I knew that they were there. But it was hard to even I'd be okay in the lobby. And then when I even just went into that hall right before you go to the theater, just felt really strong right there. And so I just would kind of hurry into the theater and do my practices and made sure I had people there. But it was like that until I finally had to kind of get past it the final week and do my best. But it was felt uncomfortable, and I just had to kind of push it away and say, no, I made him come in and bless the building again, and up in the costume room this time where we had known that darker spirit to be. And I was able to get my show running. And once it got running and opened and people were in the building, it just changed. It felt better, and I was okay to go along after that.
It makes you wonder why these spirits, if that's what they are,
It does.
why they linger, why they stick around. You know,
Mm-hmm.
why aren't they based on a lot of people's beliefs
Yeah,
about the afterlife?
right.
You kind of move on to other things, but
Yes.
for some reason these spirits feel a need to stay there.
It,
And this
it,
is it's obviously a purely speculative question you don't know the answer
right.
to, but it makes you wonder
Well,
why. Why did they stick around?
it does really make you think about how attached you are to things. And so, even for me, I've always loved that theater. It's just held a good spot in my heart. I've loved it from a little girl on up. And like I said, I had a desire to own it, and I was thrilled to have it. And maybe it was even unhealthy. I don't know. But I thought, you know what? I see this woman in here. And this man that seems stuck a little bit. I don't want to be that person. So I think
Mm-hmm.
I need to let go of this feeling and let someone else do something with this theater, because when I die, I don't want to be stuck in that theater roaming around because I was so tied to it on earth, you know, when I was
Yeah.
alive. So I don't know, perhaps it's something like that. I'm not sure if it was just that it held such good memories, or they had such a lot of time there and that's just where they end up being. It almost seems like sometimes these spirits just go about their lives and don't even realize, almost like some shows you've seen where they don't realize they're dead. And they're just going about, because my husband's at times seen spirits and they don't see him. They're just doing their thing. It almost seems like they're just working or doing their normal daily things. So maybe they were so
Interesting.
stuck in their routine and so stuck on their business and what they were doing, like kind of like an Ebenezer Scrooge type thing. You can't take it with you. You know, you when you go, if you're just hanging on to these worldly things, then maybe that kind of traps your spirit a little bit. You're going to be hanging on to these things more than other things that would be good. So
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
my theory. I don't know if it's correct, but
Sure.
I think maybe that's part of it. So
Um, Interestingly enough, the building has stayed in the family, like we've mentioned. Your brother Andrew and his wife
yeah,
Camilla Christensen, they own the
yeah,
building now.
yeah,
And of all things, it's a haunted attraction.
yes,
It's called Lost Souls Attractions. It's interesting. Her husband opened it
mhm,
2006 or 7, and
yes,
it wasn't tied to the history of spirits haunting the building. He just
no,
liked going to haunted attractions at people's homes, and he just thought it
yeah,
would be fun to open one. But
hmm,
Camilla didn't realize it till I spoke with her, where she said it is actually kind of ironic
yeah.
that we opened a haunted
Yes, too.
attraction in this building that is literally haunted.
So if you go to the haunted theater, there's probably a 99.9 chance you won't take a spirit home with you.
Yeah. Right.
There's a 1% chance you might.
Yes. Um, Ronnie, thanks so much for your time today. What a fascinating, um, it's spooky and oddly heartwarming a bit, and uh, a lot of life lessons too.
Yes, for
Interestingly enough,
sure.
it's such an interesting tale.
Yes, it is. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Ronnie. Thanks once again to Ronnie for sharing those stories with us. By the way, the Lost Souls Attractions in Shelley is now running nightly through November 1st. For It's Worth Mentioning, I am Rett Nelson. We'll see you next time.